Okay, I'm gonna do a small test. Everyone hears me? All right, perfect. So the connection seems to be well. So once again, good morning to everyone, uh, and good evening to those who are in Asia zone. I know like we have actually people all over the place, all over the world. So the different time zones. Thanks so much for joining. So yeah, today we're going to talk a little bit about the bank monetization programs, bank monetization instruments. I would put it this way, and actually the connection between bank monetization instruments and the crypto OTC. Because it's quite trendy thing right now. There are quite a lot of offers on the market that are offering that, but at the same time, most of the people they either don't know or think it's too risky and don't want to go for that. So anyway, let's try to understand what it is, how it works, how it affects the crypto OTC market, and let's try to see whether it can be beneficial for both sides, including the middleman, agents, buyers, sellers, and all the ecosystem. So first of all, a couple of words about us and about what we do on OTC market, who we are, etc., etc. So Cash Bitcoin is actually it's a new project of ICO Box team. The same team that actually has built ICO Box a couple of years ago has built Cash Bitcoin as a brand. So it's totally the same team behind that. ICO Box is quite well known on the market. We've done our own ICO a couple of years ago, or probably like 2 years. Yeah, I guess 2 years ago. We've covered more than 100 projects. We've worked with, we helped to raise more than $650 million to the project that's been doing ICO. So, like ICO Box as a name is quite well known, and we use a lot ICO Box as kind of reference to what we've been doing and actually to prove to people that we are not new to crypto space, not at all, and actually we know what we do. And this helps to gain some trust. So when you're gonna talk to your buyers, then actually you can easily use ICO Box as a brand name. Usually, it helps to build some initial trust. Very important. Cash Bitcoin is relatively new. Cash Bitcoin has been launched, actually we started to think about it, I guess October, November 2018, so not that long ago. And actually as a project, it has been born very beginning of 2019. So it's relatively new. But at the same time, we've been working quite hard. There is a solid team behind that, so we managed to, for like several months, we managed to achieve, from my point of view, some considerable results. We already covered more than 1,000 potentially interested in deals people. We have more than 100 buyers, and what is very important that actually these buyers are the end buyers with the proof of funds ready, with the documents. So it's quite solid database. We have more than 50 agents and intermediaries, which is like, from my point of view, it's those people verified, but in reality, we definitely have more. I guess more than 100, but like 50 plus is those people we personally know. Internally, we have 11 managers that are working on the crypto OTC fields on our sell offers. Altogether, we are covering more than 5 languages. Actually, more than 5 languages, but 5 languages by default. And we have 3 professional OTC lawyers. So this is a very short, brief description about Cash Bitcoin, who we are, and where we are right now. Let's move on to the topic. So, recently we get more and more information about sell offers that are offering BTC purchasing, and BTC are being sold with a solid discount, plus the actual asks to use bank instruments like MT760 bank guarantee, MT760 as BLC, MT760 collateral guarantee, so MT760s in different ways, tier sheets, etc., etc. Sellers are saying that actually bank escrow is replacing, like bank to bank as a procedure is replacing the escrow services. It's very secure and safe. It gives mutual profit to both sides, and also it is very attractive in terms of the price, because like obviously everyone is searching for the cheaper price, and at the same time everyone is asking for the escrow. But it's something that doesn't exist a lot on the markets. At least we haven't yet met any serious seller with solid volumes that is ready to work through escrow and to work with a huge discount. And so bank to bank, is actually replacing that. And in most of the offers, it even offer bigger discounts than like more normal things, more normal sell offers, I mean. So if we talk about the crypto OTC market right now, then we definitely should talk about, like, from my point of view, several bullet points, several major things that affect everyone on the market. Just give me a second, because there is probably a problem with the voice. No, it seems to be fine. Yeah, so let's talk about as I say about the crypto OTC right now, and the main major points how the OTC market looks like now. It's actually definitely from our perspective, but I guess it's quite obvious for everyone. So there are definitely lots of buyers. The demand is huge. At the same time, in terms of the sellers, there are a lot of complexities. So searching for a real seller with coins who is ready to perform is definitely a big issue. Though it's also an issue for the buyers, but in most of the cases, buyers are regulated big institutions, so we definitely have the opportunity to prove that, to check that. While with the sellers, it's a little bit more complicated. We face a lot of scam, a lot of fake offers, a lot of fake buyers, fake sellers. So fake is another issue. And definitely we should talk about three major points, three major issues. We should talk about the security, the price, and procedures issues. When I talk about the security, then definitely due to the phenomena of Bitcoins, due to the features of Bitcoin, once you send it, you have no opportunity to revoke that in 99% of the cases. Therefore, sellers are super cautious, and most of the procedures, they are done in the benefits of the seller rather than in benefits of the buyer. So usually, like, buyers are requested to make the first payments, to make the first step, and and it's always a tricky for them. It's a tricky thing for them, because obviously some of them think that actually they need to give me a second, please, because some people are trying to get to webinar, but they are not succeeding. Give me a second, please. So yeah, and so like buyers think in most of the time, buyers think that, like, guys, we need to pay upfront, we need to follow the procedure of the seller, which is not fair. We want to buy, we have money, but why do we need to actually follow the procedure of the seller rather than following the procedure rather than following our procedure? And this problem of the of chicken and egg is always coming up. So security and procedures are quite major, and we always face that. plus the price. So like I've did several offers using like big escrow, tier one escrow, like Wilmington Trust, like Kingdom Trust, Elmax, these kind of big names. But every time there is a seller who is ready to use escrow, then definitely all the cost of escrow are should be covered by the buyer, and it definitely leads to the fact that actually there is no discount deals. In most of the deals are premium. So so again, like the issues, the challenges of the market are quite obvious. Quite a few sellers, huge number of buyers. Everything is not verified. So security, price, and procedures definitely is a big pain in the neck for us. Therefore, recently we see from a lot of sellers and several, I mean, probably not a lot of sellers, but from several sellers and traders, we are hearing that there is a solution. So, and bank to bank is actually an ultimate answer to all of the issues that I've mentioned. For instance, let's talk about the very major points that sellers that are using bank to bank are saying to the buyers, to the market, and how they think that this actually resolves all the issues. First, the sellers that are using bank to bank are ready to send BTC upfront, which is actually definitely solves the security issues for the buyer. The sellers are ready to provide considerable discounts for the market, discounts that are enough for the for intermediaries, definitely, which is also fine for the buyer and for the buyer's team. And if you're gonna dig deep into what is bank-to-bank offer, then you're gonna see that it's quite simple. So the simplicity is something that really bank-to-bank offers are using. For in most of the cases, they only need a tier sheet to start. If tier sheet is, if someone doesn't know what is that, it's just a bank statement with the contact of bank officers and MT760. And so people that understand how the bank instruments work, they definitely see that it's not a big deal, to block funds or to provide a tier sheet or to maintain a level of the of money on a bank account and actually get bitcoins upfront just based on a simple agreement. So the simplicity is actually resolving the issue of procedures, complicated procedures. The discounts are definitely resolving the issue of the pricing and the costly offers that we have on escrow, for instance. And BTC that may be sent up front are definitely resolving, like the way how BTC are being sent, definitely resolving the security issues. The question is like, what is then the symbiosis of the OTC and the bank monetization bank to bank? So why bank to bank? Why crypto OTC has actually launched and triggered the communication between bank monetization, trade, etc., etc. Like obviously, trade and monetization of bank instruments is something that's been on the market for quite a long time, well before the crypto OTC and crypto market. But the very interesting thing about crypto OTC and the institutions that came into this market is that what happened is a consolidation of a lot of enormous amounts on the bank accounts of institutions, of private investors, family funds, and this consolidation immediately drew an attention of traders and companies that are close to bank instruments and bank instruments monetization. And actually, this is where the symbiosis happens. So, like traders saw the opportunity to actually to have an access to big accounts, big institution accounts, family funds, where there are where big amounts of money are consolidated, which is not very, which is quite rare when it comes to a like normal situation, if I can put it this way. And also the marginality of trading enables them to actually to offer bitcoins with a considerable discount, and this is actually where the symbiosis comes in. So obviously, I mean, if we talk about the crypto OTC and we talk about the trade instruments, bank monetization instrument, then definitely there is a connection, and people saw that. So let's talk a bit about how the trade works. What is that? I mean, like probably like based on our experience, you know, we faced rarely people, specifically among middlemen, agents, that really know how the bank instrument monetization works. And you know, there are so many scary stories about the Swift MTs. You know, like if you're gonna offer, or you have an experience of offering the MT Swift and you know, this kind of instruments, you're definitely gonna tell me, and you're gonna be agree with me that a lot of people are going to tell, oh, this is fake, this is fraud. We didn't go for that. The buyer has a bad experience, etc., etc., etc. So you know, like there are so many rumors on the market, and in reality, we see that not so many people, you know, know how it works and what is actually staying behind that. So actually, you know, actually the trade works quite easy. So we try to extract a very important bullets, just several of them, in order for you to better understand how it works. So usually, the sellers that are using bank instruments, they are offering to the potential buyers to maintain or block funds on their accounts. This is usually done in order to actually to withdraw money from the vault economy turnover and actually start the trade. This is how basically this is the very initial and first step from which the trade starts. Then the bank or the trader, usually the trader and the bank, or the bank, is actually mirroring the exactly the same amount. And actually the mirror of these funds, I mean of the funds of the buyer or potential buyer, is actually done for a project, usually a social project, used as the reason why the mirror is done. When it's also done, so this is actually a very important thing. When you actually ask the buyer to block funds, a lot of buyers think that actually the trader is going to draw up a credit line based on the MT760 or maintenance of the balance, etc., etc. But in reality, traders, they are always mirroring their own funds based due to well prepared, well in advance projects, and the block on the buyer's account is only used to withdraw money from the world economy turnover. So this is the major point. So it's not for to actually to draw up the credit lines and trade on the stock market. It's not like that. It's a very it's not correct if someone thinks like that. The actual scheme is different, and I want you to pay attention to this particular fact. And when the social project is actually well prepared, when the mirror of the funds is done by the bank of the seller, then the bank is requesting a leverage, and leverage is an essential thing in understanding how the trade works, because without the leverage, the programs that the sellers are using for the bank monetization are super low margin. So it's actually it's 0.1, 0.2, it might be 0.1, 0.2 per day, which is the best scenario, or even 0.1, 0.2 per month or per week. But when it comes to the leverage, a leverage of X10 or X20, then definitely the profit that they can actually gain on these low risk programs, actually like risk-free programs, is increased 10 times, 20 times, and actually this is exactly what helps the sellers and the traders, you know, to gain a lot of money and to gain the profit and to make the profit share. If you talk about what exactly is happening with the trade, then it's a lot of people think that actually it's something related to the stock market or forex, so something risky and something that enables the seller to be to default on the credit line, right, or on the leverage. But the thing is that the way how the trade happens is completely different. The way how the trade happens is actually risk-free cycles of the reselling of the liquidity. So in order for you to understand it better, we're going to give you one example. Imagine that actually you have a car buyer, and the car buyer is ready to buy a car for 25,000, right? And actually you find a car seller who is ready to sell you the car, exactly the same car that the buyer is searching for 20k. So, and imagine that actually, like, you can sign agreements and prepare the document framework for the car buyer and for the car seller that they cannot actually exit the deal. So the deal is well prepared in advance. There is no any opportunity nor for the buyer neither for the seller to exit, and you actually you do what you do. So you find the buyer for 25 and you find the seller for 20. This is exactly what is risk-free reselling of the liquidity is. Because the example is just perfect. It's the same. So what you do when you do like that, so when you find the buyer for 25 and you find the seller for 20 and you do all the document framework, the only thing you need to do is actually to get 20k to give the car to the buyer, and what is in the end? In the end, you immediately do 5k, right? This is exactly what trade is. So actually don't confuse it with the stock market, with forex, or any other instruments that are very familiar to to us. I mean, like, to people that have some kind of basic knowledge about that. The recycles of reselling the liquidity is totally different, and it's based on the necessity in liquidity in AAA big companies and other companies that are ready to provide this liquidity and actually get the based on the agreement that is going to and they're going to get the profit later, but this profit is going to be delivered to them for 100% because companies that are asking for the liquidity are companies are AAA companies that can be 100% trusted, you know, etc., etc. So when we talk about the car buyer and car seller example, imagine that also you put a leverage of x10 x20 to the same example, and this is how the trader is actually doing a lot of money, and why there are considerable discounts, and there are these, you know, nice and attractive selling offers using bank to bank. I'm gonna just try to sum up one more time. So why crypto OTC and bank monetization instruments work together? What is the connection between the two of them? So actually, again, I'd like to stress out and outline that Bitcoins for the traders is definitely an asset. It's something that has a high demand, and definitely traders understand that Bitcoin can actually be exchanged to an instrument. So the Bitcoin is used as a reason why there is a consolidation of the amount of money on the accounts. Bitcoin is the reason why big institutions are ready to provide KYC to be done, the due diligence on, and, you know, this kind of things. Traders are doing usually from 25% weekly. Again, it's related. I don't want you to confuse here, you know, this high marginality and risk-free. So, like, a lot of people are asking, like, you say it's risk-free, but the margin is so high. How it's possible? It's not possible. A lot of people, you know, don't believe in that. But the thing is, but it's easier. And again, we come back to the leverage, to the question of the leverage, and we get back to the fact that actually the actual profit is super low, is extremely low, is below 1%, and in most of the cases below 0.5. But the leverage that is used here enables to do a lot of money and enables to get this amount of profits from 25% weekly, as I said, and and it gets us to a conclusion, to a very simple conclusion, that the sell offers with 10%, 20%, 40%, and even the sell offers with 100%, when the bank instruments, for instance, MT760, is exchanged to the bitcoins, and actually at the end the bitcoins eventually can be purchased by the buyer, free of charge. They are not fake, just because of the nature of the trade and the way how it works. So actually, let's talk about a couple of examples on how the trade may look like on the real offers. We have a couple of them. Today I'd like to talk about only one, ID12, but there is also definitely ID17 on our list. Let's talk about very briefly about the seller. So if we talk about ID12, then the seller is an investing company. They're based in the headquarters is in Barcelona. Though the registration of the company is in Hong Kong, they're very well connected to the HSBC Hong Kong, and actually this particular seller has an access to the control of the coins of HSBC. The history is quite easy. So HSBC Hong Kong was recommending to their investors, to their clients, to purchase bitcoins some time ago, and the bitcoin that time, when they've been recommending that, was definitely, like, in terms of the exchange rate, was much more expensive. And this is why they're employing our seller as a trading company to compensate the loss that the buyers of bitcoins in HSBC had because of the recommendation of HSBC. There is also an example of ID17. I don't want to talk a lot about ID17, but if anyone is interested, then definitely have a look in our LOI published on Telegram, and if you have any questions, let us know about that. So the procedure of ID12 is actually quite simple. It's a little bit, I mean, like, it's in reality it's slightly more complicated. So if you're gonna ask for the details, then reverse back to us and we're gonna tell you exactly how it works. But in general, it's quite simple. The seller is asking the buyer to issue MT760, and the seller is asking the buyer to issue MT760 with verbiage that is asking the block to be done for 13 months, for 1 year and 1 month. Then in some time, to be quite precise, in 20 banking days, after the MT760 block is done, and definitely the agreement, the due diligence, and everything is done as well, the the seller starts to send the bitcoins up front with the tranches. The tranches are well discussed and well built on the agreement, and the tranches are also going to be included on the verbiage. Give me 1 second, please. It's again, I see some kind of information that that the webinar is not available. Anyway, so once the MT760 is done, then in 20 banking days, the first tranche happens. Once the first tranche happens, then the second is the second follows, the third, etc., etc. And after 20 days, in 22 banking days, so altogether in 2 months, the buyer is actually getting all the bitcoins that are stated in the contract. When the buyer got all his bitcoins, the block stays, and the block still works for the seller to actually to conduct his own trading programs. But in 13 months, definitely the MT760, which has been put by the buyer on his account, is released, and actually the buyer is getting all his money back, all his funds back. So once the MT760 is released, then it obviously means It obviously means that the money are coming back. And what it means that the block is exchanged to the bitcoins. And after the block is released and money are coming back to the buyer, it means that actually the buyer is getting his bitcoins free of charge. It's quite hard for a lot of people to understand that, but the price, not the price, the value of MT760 is so high for the trader that he's ready to actually buy the MT760 from the buyer, which sounds a little bit clumsy, but still, in exchange to bitcoins. So it actually, when we provide this offer, we always say that actually, guys, it's not actual selling offer, it's some kind of a buying offer when the seller is ready to buy MT760 from you, from your buyer, or from you, and pay you in bitcoins in 42 days. And in reality, it means that in 42 days, you're going to get all your bitcoins. It's going to be 100% discount, because eventually, when 13 months are gone, you get your money back. This is exactly how it works and how the procedure looks like. Of course, every time you start to talk about these particular procedures, then immediately a lot of people, mostly people that don't understand how the trade works, they are starting to talk about risks, and they're starting to talk about the fraud, the scam, the credit lines, the default of the seller, and and some other things related to that. And we'll try to address them, but let's talk first about why it's risk-free. First, let's talk about these bullet points. First, definitely the funds are staying on the account of the buyer. So actually, it's not necessary to send anything to anyone. It's only a block which is done based on MT760. When you talk about the MT760, a lot of people, they are searching, they Google it, and on Google there are quite few information about that, and quite limited information about MT760. But we talked to several bankers, we talked to people that we know, and the point is that MT760 as a bank guarantee is definitely conditional, because it is based on the contract, and it's not. It's a very big. It's a very popular kind of rumor on the market that MT760 is unconditional and irrevocable, and it's just done based on nothing. But of course it's not true. The bank guarantee cannot be issued by a bank without a lot of things related to due diligence and KYC. So the bank understands who he is giving the bank guarantee to first. So they definitely know the trader, they definitely know the bank of the trader, the actual seller in this particular scenario. And also the conditions of the agreement, the conditions of the contract, the tranches and everything is encoded into the MT760 verbiage. So we are ready to provide you the template of the verbiage, but the template of the verbiage of MT760 with this particular offer is actually super flexible. So if your buyer or you have any kind of requirements, any kind of ideas on how the verbiage should be done, then it definitely can be done, because the seller is super flexible here. And the next super important fact is that MT760 is automatically cancelled in this particular offer in case of a single breach of the tranche schedule. This is why actually the first tranche is happening in 20 days, but not in like 5 days or 10 days. In reality, the registration of trade usually is over in 10 days. So in 10 days, in most of the cases, seller is ready to provide you with the first tranche. But because the MT760 is tightly connected to the schedule, the seller is overcautious and is trying to secure it themselves. And not to cancel MT760, and this is why they are putting on the contract 20 days, because in 20 days there is 100% fact that they're going to start the tranches, they're going to have the ability to do that, but before that the registration may take some time, and HSBC is not going to let the coins go. But in any way, again, I want to stress that MT760 in this particular case is 100% connected to the tranches, and your buyer is well covered. If he is not getting his coins according to the schedule, MT760 is released. This is just, this is it for the MT760. And MT760 in this particular case is double checked by the two bank officers. The bank officer on the buyer side and on the seller side, and actually the bank officer are tracking the way how the contract is done, and the way and if there is any breach in the tranches, then again it's cancelled by the bank. On the contract, there are mutual non-performance bonds. A lot of people are talking about non-performance. There is definitely a non-performance, and about non-performance specifically, we should talk about that. There's a lot of buyers that they are asking us about the non-performance because MT760, definitely costs some money, but not definitely, but there is a cost in most of the cases, and the mutual non-performance bonds are actually covering these risks as well. Again, two last things about why this offer is risk-free. The contract is vetted by the bank officer, and the seller, when of course, like non-buyer is going to specifically the big institution is going to enter the contract with an unknown legal entity. The legal entity can be definitely checked, can be the KYC can be done for the seller, and the seller is a legitimate regulated company with all the licenses and agreements, and they're ready to provide that. This is why, when you talk about the risk-free, there is a certain list of things why it's risk-free. Let's talk about, quite briefly, let's talk about the actual way how it works. So MT760 for 13 months, the very certain schedule on how it's going to be, I'm talking about the Bitcoin's purchase, 42 days to deliver all the coins. I'm talking about 42 banking days, which is actually around 2 months. MT760 is released back to the buyer in 13 months, which means that buyer is getting the access to Bitcoins free of charge. So he's actually doubling, for instance, 100 million in 1 year, and he's getting his Bitcoins and he's getting back his money. This is generally how the process and procedure and the offer works. Of course, even though we spend a lot of time on the persuasion and on the explanation on how it works, still there are so many questions, so many concerns about the MT760. There are so many rumors on the market, etc., etc. And actually, we try to cover the most important, not even important, I would say most frequently asked and frequently asked the arguments that we hear in most of the cases. So first, people are asking us why MT760 should be, in this particular ID12 offer, why should MT760 be for 100 millions? Because this is the very basic minimum. So the seller is ready to start this program and to start this procedure when MT760 is done for minimum 100 million euros. It's easy. It's a requirement of HSBC, and actually this we've seen this with our own eyes on the agreements between HSBC and the seller. And actually, if you set up the face-to-face between the buyer and the seller is going to provide you this document. You're going to see it. It's quite it's quite obvious, and it's connected to the targets that HSBC is trying to achieve using this program and using the cooperation with this particular seller. MT760 is irrevocable, unconditional, blah blah blah. You're gonna hear this if you're gonna offer this to your to your buyers. You're gonna hear this in most of the time. No, it's not true because MT760 as a bank guarantee, in this particular case, the collateral guarantee is used, is tightly connected to the agreement, is tightly connected to the schedules of the Bitcoin tranches, and any single breach of the Bitcoin tranches immediately cancels MT760 on the buyer's bank account. So it's just easy as that. It's like, it's like a smart contract. You get the breach of the contract. The bank officer, you get the requirement from the buyer to check that to the bank officer. Bank officer checks the breach of the contract, confirms that, and T760 is cancelled. And again, if you're going to ask us for the verbiage, for the templates, we can actually send you examples on what verbiage were used by the seller in order for you to, to have more instruments to persuade your buyers that is not true, that it's irrevocable and unconditional. MT760 is costly. Yeah, it's like it's one of the also one of the most frequently asked and frequently used arguments. Look, there are actually two things. First, usually it's in a lot of cases it's up to 1.5%. So if we talk about 100 millions, then we talk about 1.5 million, which is going to be a basic cost of MT760. But at the same time, a lot of VIP clients of the banks they are entitled not to pay any fee for the MTs. So in reality, of course they're gonna tell you that MT760 is costly in order to to try to negotiate better terms. But I couldn't understand what might be better than than getting your bitcoins free of charge in 13 months. But also talk about that, because if we talk about clients with minimum 100 million on the account that they are ready to block, believe me, they have specific conditions in the banks, and the prices that they're paying for MTs are definitely way less than for for average people with average bank accounts. So always double check that, and always ask for the proof that MT760 is costly, because some buyers, they are ready to provide a document from a bank on the prices, but in a lot of cases we've heard that the MT760 in reality costs nothing for the buyer, because the buyer is definitely a VIP client of a bank. Buyer says, I do MT760 and I'm not getting any bitcoins. It's one of the arguments that we hear all the time. The answer is very simple. If MT760 is connected to the schedule of bitcoins, and if the schedule is not followed, even one tranche is not delivered on time, MT760 is cancelled. Easy as that. Plus, there is a certain non-performance bond on the contract, and they're gonna definitely cover the costs for MT760. They're gonna cover the cost for time that they've spent for the agreement, etc., etc. So if this happens, which is not the case, then they are definitely covered with all the possible points. And the last one, which is like less obvious, but we also face this kind of arguments, is that the bank is not ready to do MT760. Yes, that's true. There are banks that are not ready to do that. Plus, there is a requirement from the seller to actually that MT760 should be done by a top bank. So you just simply open a top 100 bank, for instance, in the US, and actually these top 100 banks, they are going to be approved by the seller very easily and by HSBC. If it's some small bank, then definitely some complexities might come up. So think about that. So this is definitely this requirement is definitely, I mean, this procedure, this this seller is definitely for the institutions with the famous banks. We had some cases where some small rare banks were supposed to be used. Like for instance, we've got one case when a bank from Cyprus, the buyer was willing to use a bank from Cyprus, and the bank is very small. I mean, like, no one knows about this bank, a private bank, and actually the seller refused to accept MT760 from this bank. We are finishing up and getting to the questions and answers session. So just very briefly, why should you be interested? I'm talking about the intermediaries, definitely. I'm talking about us as an OTC agency, and I'm talking about you. It's 5% difference between gross and net. So we definitely, in all the cases, we're going to get 5%. This 5% is split 50-50 between our side and the buyer side. And it means that if you go for the minimum amount of 100 millions, then you immediately get 2.5 million euros in your pocket. Each tranche, the seller is paying out the Bitcoin, the commission in Bitcoins to your wallet, and actually, just if your buyer is ready to purchase, like how much, like 20,000 BTC, then you're gonna get out of that using the offer, you're gonna get 2.5 million. I guess it's definitely worth using the materials from this presentation and try to persuade buyers to go for that, considering the remunerations based on this agreement. And remunerations on the bank-to-bank offers are always this big, because the nature of the trade enables to give bigger discounts and definitely pay more. In terms of the next steps, because like you have a buyer, the buyer might be interested, very easy. We sign an TNT between you and us. We actually we explain to you, you explain to your buyer, or even better, if you bring us your buyer and we're going to explain, because we know how to do that. We explain what is trade, we explain what is MT760. The best scenario is when the buyer knows what is the trade. There are a lot of buyers like that, a lot of former traders. They understand what is trade, and actually the explanation to them why MT760 is used is very easy and very smooth. It's only about some details that we need to manage in order to get the deal done. Then once explanation is done, and once the understanding of the both parties is achieved, then we can actually jump on a call, mandate buyer. Very very easy to do that. Then very basic CIS. We just need to understand who is the buyer in terms of the legal entity that is going to be signing as a counterparty for the seller. We just needed to have the basic proof from the seller. If it's all done as well, and if the buyer willing to have face-to-face, then face-to-face, preferably in Barcelona or Madrid, but it's also possible for the seller to travel once they have the CIS. And usually, like based on our experience, when face-to-face happens, and on face-to-face, the seller is ready to provide Satoshi test and show the coins, ready to provide all the documents, all the licenses, and actually also the way how the seller talks. I've been to several meetings, and the way how they, how confident they are in what they do, because they're super professional. In 9 out of 10 cases, once you do face-to-face, you're gonna have the deal done. So it's just it's just the way how it is. Anyway, so this is what we wanted to tell you about ID12, about the bank-to-bank, and about the bank escrows, and about the trade, and how the trade affects the crypto OTC market, and why it's quite easy and interesting to use this kind of offers specifically right now on the current market. And I think we are ready to get to the question and answers session. So if you have any questions, then we're gonna be glad to answer them, to address them. Eugene, can I ask you to switch on the to jump in and probably to share the questions with me, or getting the questions. Just give me a second, guys. All right, I see the question number 1. So, Phil, have you transacted on your client like that before? Yes. Like I'm going to talk about my personal experience. So my personal experience happened last week on Wednesday. I've been on a meeting between seller and the buyer. The meeting took place in Madrid. Actually, we've been on a face-to-face for 2 days. A lot of details discussed. I've seen with my own eyes. I've seen all the documents from HSBC with all the necessary stamps, etc., etc. And it's quite impressive, because we have some kind of a basic documents from the seller, and we're ready to provide it when we know the buyer. But definitely the basic documents is not is the basic document framework is not all the time something that persuades 100% the buyers, because they've seen a lot on the market, that's for sure. But when you see the rest of the documents, when you see the agreement between HSBC and the seller, when you see the the agreement that grants access to HSBC platform for trade, when you see the trading license of the seller, and when you see all of these documents, and you see it together with the proof of coins, then you know it impresses. Because to be quite honest, I've seen we've seen real proof of coins only several times. In most of the cases, you know that sellers are not ready to perform, so they just trying to collect the requests, and they're going to buy Bitcoin somewhere else, for instance on Coinbase or on some OTC desk. They're trying to search for the Bitcoins and then to sell them. But this particular seller, they have everything in place, the proof of coins. I can actually also, if someone is interested, I can actually tell you how exactly the proof of coins works, how they do that. They actually how many wallets they use, how many coins are on each wallet, this kind of things. It's easy, guys. By the way, if you have questions, then just share them on the blog. On the top there is a question, there is a blog named questions, very easy and obvious. Yeah, so just share there. So yeah, so we transacted last week, and it was my client, so I was doing the transaction myself. But also in Cash Bitcoin we have some other people. We have our CEO, and he has done in the end of February, he has done one deal as well with the same seller. But the conditions that time, the procedure was slightly different. But anyway, we are ready to to provide you the details about how we do with the ID12 and with this particular seller. Question number 2. Do you mean mutual performance bond? In terms of penalty payment, this is a prepaid by both parties and held in trust by a trusted third party and refunded later. There is no breach. Or are you referring to any performance clause? I'm referring to a performance clause. So there is no third party. There is a clause on the contract. Actually, there are 2 clauses, and this is how it works. Yeah, again, so there is no prepaid performance bond. The performance bond, non-performance bond actually is paid in case there is no tranches, but it's written on the contract. But again, a lot of people asking us like, guys, if you are sure so much in the seller, why don't you go for the performance that is deposited on escrow account and is actually is paid by a third party to both sides if a side is not performing? And I'm always saying, yeah, I mean, like, it probably makes some sense, but when you're gonna understand who the seller is and how much the license is, how much does it cost to get the license, then it's up to $30 million to get this license. And actually they don't feel like losing the license, and they don't feel like cheating or doing some kind of a this weird stuff with the buyers, because it's a reputation, it's licenses, and no one is going to do that for the on one single contract, because it's definitely a long term, and they can make way more money if they're gonna chase the long-term relationship with the buyers. It's very important for them. And actually the documents that you're gonna see on the face-to-face are going to definitely waive all these kind of questions. It's just you're gonna see them, you're gonna see the agreements, you're gonna see the seller, and you're gonna understand that actually it's a serious institution and they just don't deal like that. The question about the commission. So is the commission paid to intermediaries after each tranche over the 42 banking days, or is it is somehow connected to the 42 to the 13 months period? No, it's not connected to the 13 months period. It's definitely the commissions are connected to the 42 banking days to the tranches. So each tranche is coming away, is coming out from the seller, and all the parties, all the intermediaries are going to get paid. Will there be an opportunity to provide an MT760 with a smaller amount than 100 millions in the future? Probably yes, but with this particular seller, this is not a case right now. They are definitely targeting for 100 million. But there is ID17 on our list of offers, which is very similar. It's almost the same offer, and if you're gonna check that, it's definitely the entry level is way smaller. It's easy. It's way easier to sell that. But ID17 has some features which make them which make the offer different from the offer of Spanish seller. What is the timing from the issuance of MT760 to the first tranche? 20 banking days. There is actually no maximum tranche sizes. So if you're gonna go, based on the proof of coins I've seen last week, they showed a wallet of 136,000 coins on a single wallet. Of course, I mean, like, they don't store in the single wallet, because some people are asking me, like, show us the wallet that contains 136k bitcoins. Of course, it's not the case. Of course, they're collecting, they are transferring the coins to a single wallet for the contract, and this is how they do proof of coins. So just don't be confused here. There is no like wallet that you can see on blockchain. But again, there is no maximum. So if there is minimum, definitely, because the minimum amount of MT760 is 100 million euros, and for 100 million euros, the actual minimum, the minimum level of tranches is 5,000 per week. So it's not less than 1,000 per banking day, but it could be more. Hello, Bitnanshal. Yeah, nice meeting you. Good to see you. Could be done transactions strictly in HSBC network in Hong Kong. They are using HSBC in Hong Kong. If HSBC, if your buyer is ready to transact HSBC to HSBC, then of course, I mean, it's going to be way easier. Will this be available to be seen again? We're gonna do the recording of the webinar. So if anyone is interested to listen to this one more time, or you missed something, then of course you're more than welcome to see that, to watch that. Yeah, and if you have any questions, then you always can actually contact us. You have all the contact details on our official Telegram channels, on our website, LinkedIn. So you're welcome. Guys, I don't see any more questions. So yeah, so if there are no questions, no more questions, then I suppose that we should be finishing up. It took us exactly 1 hour, which is perfect, exactly as we planned. Anyway, I'd like to thank all of you to participate and to listen to that. Thank you so much. We're gonna, if you like that, then we're gonna do some kind of a survey on our Telegram channel. So if you're gonna ask several questions, then we're gonna be if you're gonna feedback us on how the webinar went, it's gonna be very cool. And if you like that, so so just let us know, and we're gonna do the same things in the future. Yeah, I see one more question. Yeah, just give me a second. It's interesting from your client in Hong Kong. Is it possible to see the docs? Yes, of course, it's possible to see the docs. But as I said to you, the docs are quite basic. So we definitely have the all the details about the seller. We have the contact details, the basic requisites. But if you're gonna ask us about the licenses, then no, you are not going to get that over the internet, which is, for security reasons, quite understandable. ID17, is this the same seller as ID12? No. ID17 is similar, but it's different. I think we're gonna do the webinar for ID17 as well, and we're gonna explain you the way it works. I mean, like, it's similar in the way how monetization works. It's similar in the way how the bitcoins are being paid out. It's similar in the way how the block works, but similar. And it's definitely easier for the buyers, because when you do in ID17, you don't need to do MT760, and the entry level is way less. So the entry level is only $5 million, and you don't need to do the administrative block, any type of them, MT760, MT799, MT760, collateral guarantee, SBLC, this kind of stuff. So you don't need to do that. With ID17, you only have to maintain the necessary level of funds on your account, and actually this is what you sign for. So if you maintain the necessary level, you're gonna get your payout just like that. This is ID17. All right. Yeah, I don't see any more questions. So yes, again, thanks so much, guys. Wish you the wonderful evening, day, whatever you had in front of you. So thanks so much, and we keep in touch. Any questions, let us know. Thank you.